You're listening to the Red Book Show live on Wexford New People's Movement Radio, coming to you from the Bunker Studio in Red Books. It's Tuesday night, you're at home, and you're listening to the smooth tones of Steve Unicky and me, Wally O'Neill. So we're talking about sci-fi this week and all the other subgenres and fantasy and horror and everything that ties into it, because the inaugural Otherworld Science Fiction Festival is coming to Wexford Town, starting on Thursday night and continuing through till Sunday evening. And there's going to be events right across Wexford Town. We'll get into that later. You can join us at the official launch on Friday night at 9 p.m. And I know that the official launch is after Thursday, but it's science fiction, so we're not dealing in linear time, so it's grand. All you have to do is listen into this show and WhatsApp us at 089 417 9972 when myself and Steve spontaneously break into a scene from Star Trek. Or, as our producer Tony has just told me, you can like and share the page. And I think just share the post, Tony, right?
Like and share the post, and share the page, and that's all you have to do.
And you can be there on Friday night with us and with Owen Colfer, the legend. So I have a quote here, Steve, from J.G. Ballard, who, well, he done many things, but he was very important with genre fiction as well.
Yeah.
And it's everything is becoming science fiction. From the margins of an almost invisible literature has sprung the intact reality of the 20th century.
Yep, it's really, really crazy. I remember, I think J.G. Ballard wrote The Empire of the Sun.
He did.
I read that book and was really involved with that book. It was a great book.
Yeah.
Much respect for him.
Yeah. What was your first introduction, Steve, to the genres of science fiction, fantasy, horror?
This takes me way, way back.
Yeah.
I was in grade school, I think, and I read a book called The Martian Chronicles by Ray Bradbury.
Yes.
I was so into that book because just like Elon Musk does today, I believe that Mars was really inhabitable. It just seemed like an alt Earth, you know. I imagined the gravity was the same. It was more desert-like and so on. But I was just fascinated about all of the changes in people that took place when they interacted with a different civilization. I was totally hooked into that book. And then, of course, it was the age of television, right? So I'll tell you a quick little yarn here. My parents gave me and my two brothers, we were allowed to watch one show a week on the weeknight on TV.
Right.
And we could watch the other brother's show too. And of course, I was the youngest, so I chose Lost in Space.
Yeah.
Well, that was after I chose Combat, of course.
Yeah.
It was Lost in Space, and then Time Tunnel. I was totally into Time Tunnel.
Time Tunnel, yeah.
But my older brother, he chose Star Trek. And that we didn't call it the original series then, it was just Star Trek.
Yeah.
So I watched it with him for his first episode. We watched what is it called? I called it the Salt Monster episode, but it was actually the Man Trap in season 1. It scared the bejesus out of me. The Salt Monster. I said, ah!
Yeah.
And it took me a couple of episodes to get back into it, and then I was like really, really hooked on Star Trek. I remember thinking how bright the future would be, and I would sit there and think, you know, it's like 1967 right now, but one of these days I'll remember this is like the old primitive times, you know.
Yeah.
And I was totally engaged in that. Of course, Mr. Spock was my hero even back then. Yeah.
Really, you weren't a Kirk man?
I thought Captain Kirk was fun, you know, but he wasn't somebody I aspired to. I basically thought I'd be a great Spock because I could almost naturally do it.
Yeah. And did you follow Star Trek the whole way up along then?
I followed the 3 episodes, and then of course it went into sort of like a big long hiatus. You know, there was no shows, there was no movie yet, and then came in and watched the first movie. I think it was in 1979. Wasn't really impressed with it, and then what happened was something really interesting. I was working for a newspaper in Texas I've talked about before called the Denton Record Chronicle. And I was, among other tasks I had to do, I was the movie reviewer. So I basically got this assignment to go review Star Trek II, Wrath of Khan. So we went in there, it was myself and my first wife and a couple of other friends and a couple of theater, like, sort of friends. what, 7 or 8 of us, and we watched. We were among the first people to ever watch Wrath of Khan. It was at midnight on the day of release, but
Wow.
they didn't show midnight shows. I mean, it was like 12:01. They got the right to show it, so we watched it.
Okay.
Oh my God, I was so impressed by that movie. I thought this is blowing my mind. It was so good, so enjoyable to
Yeah.
watch, and Khan was just a kick,
Really good.
all-time villain
Yeah,
character.
yeah. And
Ricardo
very Shakespearean.
Montalban.
Very Shakespearean.
Very Shakespearean. Yeah,
yeah.
it was wonderful.
Well, my first introduction to Star Trek was nearly by mistake, but you see, I grew up. I had no siblings, so I was growing up in 1980s Ireland, into the 1990s, and there was no internet, no older brothers or sisters, and so I didn't know what Star Wars or Doctor Who was until I was a teenager. Honestly,
yeah.
I just hadn't come across them at all. Now, I grew up with a lot of books, so I would have been introduced to things like Jules Verne, and Journey to the Center of the Earth, Jonathan Swift, Gulliver's Travels, some of the horror ones like Dracula and Jekyll and Hyde and Frankenstein and Peter Pan, of course. But then one night, an advert came on the television for Star Trek: The Next Generation, and it just blew me away. I said, "The Next Generation? What is this? Why was there another generation?" And I hadn't seen any of the movies either. And I remember watching one of the episodes, and it just completely hooked me. And even now, I would consider The Next Generation to be my Star Trek. I consider the original films from The Next Generation, Generations and First Contact, to be near perfection. Insurrection wasn't so good, or what came after, but
most of the early ones were great films.
Yeah, and they were and it was the same thing. Next Generation had that utopianism in it. Well, we talked earlier off camera about when that started to change, and I think there was things in Next Generation that took it to the next level when they had tried things. A lot of Star Trek is always recycling ideas and stuff that didn't make it during the Roddenberry era, but they had obviously built the both the Romulans and the Ferengi up as to be the big bad, and it wasn't working. So the Borg came in, and when the Borg came in, it changed. Brilliant, absolutely fantastic, but it changed things. Things got darker, especially the Battle of Wolf 357, is it?
Yeah,
And
I think so.
And there was that famous introduction episode to Deep Space Nine where Cisco met Picard, and it turned out he hated him because Picard had accidentally killed his wife when he was turned into a Borg. Wow, if there's anybody listening to this who's not into Star Trek, they're going to be saying, what the hell is this? Tony's looking at us like we've completely lost the plot.
No, I want to say one thing. I told you that this off the show, but when I watched Star Trek, the original series in the late 60s, I just thought the future will be bright. There was no doubt. I didn't even consider the question. When we get to Star Trek: The Next Generation, it's like, well, the future might be bright, but there's some possibilities it won't turn out. And the Borg, to me, was the introduction of a sort of a darkness that had not been, I had never seen in Star Trek before, but I was still fascinated by the social statements that they were making.
But it continued to get darker, and Picard, and again it was using the Generation cast, so I loved it, but there was something after the first series I thought this is not what I remember, and I didn't like seeing Patrick Stewart. I suppose he had aged, and it was difficult.
Definitely
it was difficult. And Star Trek Discovery, they were darker, and I thought, why are they doing this? But it wasn't that Star Trek had changed, it was that the audience had changed. They expected things to be darker.
It's reflecting our times.
And there was much more distrust in the establishment, whether it be a political or military, or pretty much any establishment was distrusted, and the internet had arrived, and people needed different things. And it's a pity, because even if you went back, I think if I discovered The Next Generation today, I'd probably look at it as being very hokey, but it was great. And then, but this is, I think these early experiences, especially with genre fiction, mold the individual you become, and they have a lot of impact on you. I discovered a comic. Now, I wasn't a big comic book kid because comics just weren't around. Myself and Shane Hurley of Nerd Up often talk about this, that there was things that just weren't available to us that are available now, like, Dungeons and Dragons and all of that. It didn't exist here.
Yeah.
But I found this comic. I only ever had one issue of it, and I've never been able to track down what. Obviously, it's long lost now. I've never been able to track down what it was. I've tried deep dives on Google, haven't been able to find it. I believe it was a French-English production, but the basic gist of it was a post-apocalyptic story. My first real introduction to that kind of a story, where a virus had killed most people. A couple of kids were left. They were making their way across this post-apocalyptic wasteland of the UK, trying to find a boat so they could get to France. So it's what you would call now very common. And this is the thing. This is the thing I notice with young people reading, because I would see that now as being very common. But that blew me away when I discovered it as an 8-year-old. I see kids coming in now and picking up the Hunger Games and being blown away by it. And I would think the Hunger Games, that's all been done before, hasn't it?
Yeah.
But they haven't read it. They haven't been introduced to it.
Yeah.
So it's brilliant, and that's, sometimes I can be critical of the young adult genre for rehashing things. But it's not. It's great. It's just the stories being retold in different ways. The same as Star Trek retold the stories.
And we have to remember when we were the young adults, or whatever our demographic was at the time, whatever they called it, we were going through this kind of thing of everything being kind of new, to us. I remember, I really resisted going to the first Star Wars movie. I didn't want to go. I said, it's all hype. Forget that. And I finally went, and I was just so blown away by it, like millions of other people were, because it was something new. But now, of course, it's all chewed over, and it's nothing new about it anymore.
Yeah, well, maybe to us, hopefully there's still something that people are getting from it. The first Jurassic Park. Do you remember Jurassic Park?
Oh, very well. Yeah.
Jurassic Park came out when I was 12, so perfect time for it to arrive, and it was the first. I mean, I'd read a lot, but I suppose it was the first book that I read and enjoyed that was kind of it wasn't adapted for younger people,
No.
And that book blew me away, because the film had blown me away, but the book was better than the film.
Yeah.
And it brought me down a deep dive, which often does with genre fiction. So I went from Jurassic Park to Isaac Asimov and the Foundation series. I started getting into Stephen King. Kurt Vonnegut and Philip K. Dick came on which was completely different, transgressive science fiction. And at the same time, in those teenage years, I was being introduced to The Outer Limits had been remade. It was a golden age of science fiction, because we had Farscape, we had Firefly, I discovered some of the older ones then, Blake 7, Day of the Triffids, the 1981 miniseries. The BBC done some great science fiction and fantasy and horror during the 60s, 70s, 80s. And The Stand, I read The Stand, and I had discovered the miniseries when I was too young, but I had seen parts of it, but just blew me away, and again opened me to the subgenres, which we'll get into in a minute. Is there a subgenre that you preferred?
I was actually going to pick up on a couple of other threads first. First of all, I had to say, I remember when I was young. Okay, I saw The Outer Limits in prime time.
This was the original Outer Limits.
This was the original. It scared the daylights out of me. Yeah. And I'm not somebody who's really into horror movies, by the way. That scared the daylights out of me. I could handle the Twilight Zone, but the Outer Limits, I said, no, I don't want to go there. But the other thing I'm thinking of is, you talked about Jurassic Park a minute ago.
Yeah.
And I saw Jurassic Park from a completely different age. I was already teaching economics and everything as a professor. And on the one hand, I appreciated all the special effects. The dinosaurs looked so real and all that, and it was scary as hell. But it was like, wasn't repelled by that. The other thing is, I saw that as an economic fable, Jurassic Park, about the how greed destroys everything, and that's what happened at Jurassic Park. The guy who's the entrepreneur, right, running the thing, he's so optimistic, it's going to be wonderful, everybody will love this, but he doesn't count on the characters who are going to, fuck it all up,
Yeah.
So anyway, but I appreciate that movie a lot.
Yeah. Well, you're listening to the Red Book Show on Wexford New People's Movement Radio. And if you're just tuning in, we are discussing science fiction, fantasy, horror, and all the subgenres that go with it ahead of this weekend's inaugural Otherworld Science Fiction Festival in Wexford Town. And you can win 2 tickets to join us at the launch in Wexford Arts Centre with Owen Colfer on Friday night. All you have to do is WhatsApp us at 089 417 9972 or just go on Facebook and share the post. And you can get 2 tickets. Come down and join us. It's going to be great, Steve.
Yeah, it's going to be.
I know you're going to be great.
It's going to be a fantastic thing. I can't wait for it.
Yeah. So we were talking about subgenres. There's so many subgenres. I mean, we couldn't possibly name them all. Subgenre that I really got into, and we hit off it there, was post-apocalyptic fiction. I was very much into space opera earlier, and then I stumbled upon post-apocalyptic. And
space opera. Give me an example of that.
Well, Star Trek would be the most, but there's so much of it. In space opera itself, there's loads of different subgenres of that. Well, whether it's military space opera and
I guess maybe another example might be 2001. The Space Odyssey. Yeah. That movie was intriguing. Saw that when it first came out in the movie theater, and I was just stunned and amazed, and I loved it. The all that kind of, it wasn't that's the Star Trek theme, but just the whole thing was just amazing.
It was amazing. Yeah. It was amazing. And do you think we've moved away from movies and books being able to amaze us in that way now, or has the internet ruined it slightly by just being able to reveal things instantly?
Oh yeah, the internet takes away a lot of the wonder.
Yeah.
Okay.
You know what? Do.
All right. Well, I'm going to tell you about a movie that's maybe space opera. I'm not sure how to classify it. Sort of dystopian too. It's kind of late in my science fiction experience, but I saw the movie Interstellar. I think it came out in 2014, something like that. Okay. I saw it a couple of years later on like a streaming video, and I was so inspired by that movie. I wrote a poem. So this is my sci-fi poem, you might say, and I've never read this anywhere around here. I read it one time to a group in Sweden, so I'm going to read it. This is like some poetry based on Interstellar, but other things. It's called Between the Stars. I have had enough of splendid isolation, being alone in an echo chamber, singing as it were, and yet, just yet, when one just once hits the right note, cinematically, scientifically, and emotionally, that is both magnificent and memorable. I have now seen almost all my childhood heroes fall. The climate changes. There should be snow. There used to be, but there is not anymore. Planet Earth was blue, now there's nothing prime ministers can do. And yet, just yet, there is this, for me, the hope of transcendental reality, beyond even time and its cousin, death. Nobody is coming back. Nothing is coming ahead, certainly not suddenly, not even certainly. And yet, just yet, I carry on teleporting with an old rotary dial telephone, dreaming I will dare to happen, to be seen, to fire myself, to disappear again through a wormhole like a meteor and find out what will and why for.
Wow, that's brilliant, Steve.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, and that really connects a lot of things there, doesn't it?
Connects a lot of things, yeah, for me.
So, talking about subgenres, are you familiar with cozy catastrophes?
With what?
Cozy catastrophes.
I don't think so.
This is a term coined by British sci-fi writer Brian Aldiss. I think we've certainly mentioned him in our Anarchist Book Club because we read Old Greybeard.
Oh yeah, I remember Greybeard. That was a great story.
And here's a quote that might explain a bit of it to you. The essence of cozy catastrophe is that the hero should have a pretty good time. A girl, free sweets at the Savoy, automobiles for the taking, while everyone else is dying off. And it's strange what gets classified as this, because it turns out a lot of the post-apocalyptic books I like may actually fall under this. So Stephen King's The Stand is actually classified as a cozy catastrophe
really?
by some. Now, I wouldn't have considered that to be,
Yeah.
but the fact that, you know, they kind of rebuild society and they're kind of having their little public meetings and singing the American national anthem and all while everybody else is dead.
Oh, say,
That
can
kind
you
of
see?
that kind of ties it in, yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas the other big one that would have appeared that sometimes we say borrowed a little bit from The Stand, Swan Song by Robert McCammon, that wouldn't necessarily be because it's so dark.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't give up at all. But other ones that would tie into the genre might be The Day of the Triffids is certainly one, and it's the one by John Wyndham, and it's one that we always go back to. And have you read The Day of the Triffids?
No, no. I was just going to say that I think your reading of sci-fi is way beyond me. I sort of sample books, and I try this book and try that book.
Yeah.
But of course, this is your trade, man. You get into so many books.
Well, The Day of the Triffids is absolutely crazy because if you were to describe it, and it's one of the problems with the internet now, because if you were to Google the plot of The Day of the Triffids, you wouldn't read it because it sounds so bizarre and just so unrealistic. The general idea is that Bill Mason works with triffids, which is a kind of a plant that it was discovered and then kind of geoengineered to produce oil, but the plant is kind of sentient. Well, it is sentient. It can move around and it's dangerous. It spits out some poisonous stuff that can make you go blind. And Bill gets struck by one of them and he has to go under a procedure. So he's in hospital with his eyes covered. That same night, there's a meteor shower, which right across the whole world, everybody looks up, sees it. In the morning, they're all blind. But because he had his eyes covered, he's not.
Oh,
so
God.
he's now
What a position to be in.
he's now the man living in the land of the blind.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the Triffids break out and start killing everybody and eating them. And it sounds so insane, but it works. It works really well, and it is the kind of cozy catastrophe because he finds somebody else and they're working to try and get out of this, and there's other guys living on the Isle of Man there trying to rebuild society. It's actually, I'd really recommend it. Another one that might tie into it is I Am Legend by Richard Madison.
Yeah.
And this one is big when it comes to culture because there's been 3 movies made out of it.
Yeah, I think I saw the first one.
Yeah. Well, the first one was Vincent Price, and some would argue probably the most faithful to the book.
Yeah.
Crazily. The second one was called The Omega Man with Charlton Heston, which was very, very camp. Very, very crazy 1970s with Charlton Heston being Charlton Heston.
I think I've seen that one.
Yeah, and the third one was the Will Smith one, which was Hollywood trying a bit of CGI.
Yeah.
And then there's other ones that like Earth Abides by George Stewart, 1940. Like a lot of these were written in the late 40s and during the 50s, and could be an effect of World War II. You saw that the whole genre of anime and manga, the way that was affected by the nuclear bombs being dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. The same thing could have happened in America and England with people coming back from the war, what they had seen, what they had lost. So Earth Abides was 1949, George Stewart, and it was about a virus pretty much wiping out most people. Very, very sparse population left. This guy was up in the mountains and somehow he survived. And he goes across America, only sees a handful of people. He eventually finds a woman, and it goes right up then to his grandkids who they've abandoned reading and writing and everything because they have to survive. So it's gone back to a hunter-gatherer society. There's John Christopher done one around the 50s as well, Dead of Grass, which was about pretty much what it says on the tin. It's about a grass virus that wipes out crops. So there's massive famines and about a family trying to get out of the UK. Alas, Babylon was a Pat Frank one from 1959 about a nuclear war. Remember, this is nuclear war before massive radiation or anything, before nuclear winter theories. So that was a survivable nuclear war. So it's about these people living in Florida, post-nuclear war. And then, of course, there's Neville Shoots On the Beach,
Oh yeah.
which is a fascinating book. Very, very dark for a cozy catastrophe, actually.
Yeah.
Um,
Well, you mentioned Charlton Heston. I'm going to break your train of thought for a
yeah,
moment.
yeah.
But we cannot mention Charlton Heston and dystopian sort of science fiction without mentioning a couple of films. One of them, of course, Planet of the Apes. But the other one,
I'm glad you mentioned Planet of the Apes.
the
yeah.
other one, Soylent Green is
Oh,
people.
yeah.
Yeah.
yeah. Like Planet of the Apes, RT used to do a thing back in the late 80s and early 90s where their top rated show for the week was the Late Late Show, and they would show a classic movie after the Late Late Show, and they even had a host for a while, so they were trying to copy that American thing. And I watched a few of them. I would stay up late and watch them, and there's some very good movies actually. So they had a couple of the classic noir crime ones, but again, you have to remember I had no brothers or sisters.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the internet, so I didn't know anything about any of these movies. And Planet of the Apes came on, the original Planet of the Apes, and I watched it right through. And because I was a bit fascinated by sci-fi, and I thought, wow, this is crazy. These guys have crashed on an alien planet, and there's apes. And then it got to that final scene, which I don't think it's going to be a spoiler to say what that final scene is. It's so iconic now with the age of the internet.
Yeah.
But the Statue of Liberty is half buried in the sand.
Yeah.
And he falls off, jumps down, and says, "They did it. They finally did it. Damn you all to hell." And I was still thinking, well, maybe I was 9 or 10, going, what's going on here? Why is the Statue of Liberty here? And then it dropped, and I thought, wow, that is something else.
That's quite a finish.
That is something else. But it's incredible. Of course, there was some great dystopian science fiction that came out of the Soviet Union as well at this time. The likes of Roadside Picnic, and did you ever come across a book called We?
That sounds so familiar.
Yeah, now that's a classic one. I think that was done maybe in 1912. It was very, very early. But I have you can see here, Steve, I have a whole list. I was just trying to put together some of these ones from last night from memory, and I know I've forgotten so many others, but there's little tropes and side tropes like The Handmaid's Tale.
Yep, The Handmaid's
Tale. A lot of people probably don't like the idea of it being called genre fiction at this stage, but it certainly was, and it played on a particular template. Many others have done it. I think The Parable of the Sower would tie in very closely to The Handmaid's Tale. There's also a very notorious one which would probably get us cancelled off YouTube for even mentioning it, called The Turner Diaries, which was a fascist version of The Handmaid's Tale. But there's so many of these ones. That is a subgenre, the found diaries in the future that show you what was happening in the past, which is actually our future. And it's fascinating.
One of the things that The Handmaid's Tale did, it's sort of like really fundamental, but a lot of people don't necessarily focus on it, is the fact that unlike a lot of novels previously, there wasn't any sort of part to play of environmental degradation of some kind and what it could possibly do to an entire society. So you had a problem with fertility, right?
Yes.
And so then it led to all these other sort of dystopian results.
And that is itself is a trope as well, and it ties us in beautifully to two other books. Greybeard, which we've already mentioned by Brian Aldiss.
Brilliant.
Greybeard is great.
Yeah.
And then Children of Men by P.D. James, which is far better known, mainly because of the film and everything.
Yeah.
But came after Greybeard, and a lot of people say that P.D. James borrowed heavily from Brian Aldiss on that one. Although it's a brilliant book as well.
Yeah.
And I have to rate it highly. And then of course there's a couple that we can't leave this conversation without talking about them. Hopefully we'll be able to go back and read them for Reader's Challenge at some stage. But The Postman by David Brin.
Yeah.
A lot of people have written that off after the Costner film, but I thought that was a very good book, and it played with ideas that were very in the zeitgeist in America at the time with the survivalist movement and the dangers that posed. And then A Canticle for Leibowitz by Walter Miller, which is a great book. For the first part of it, you're watching monks. You think you're in a medieval society, and again, it's not a spoiler, but it's a post-nuclear society,
Yeah.
and they're basically rebuilding in a similar way. And then I suppose one that I've only got around to reading them lately is the Passage trilogy by Justin Cronin, which I stayed away from for a very long time because there's vampires. And I thought, I don't like my post-apocalyptic stuff with vampires. But it turns out very, very well executed.
Yeah.
And I'd rate it up there, maybe with the standard Swan Song.
Yeah.
So, what else about you, Steve? I don't want to be hoarding this conversation.
No, you're running far ahead of me, and you probably should. So I think I can't really think of anything at the moment because we're just basically improv this thing now.
Well, you often hear me giving out about Amazon, and I will continue to give out about them.
Yeah.
And you may have even heard me giving out about the Kindle. But I do say that there is a valid reason for the Kindle to exist, and a valid reason for ebooks to exist, and that's so authors can get books to readers that just would not be economically viable to publish. And one of those, it's actually a series of books that I came across by accident, is called The Great Nuclear War of 1975 by William Strock. And William Strock is an American, I believe he's a high school
How do you
teacher.
spell his name?
Strock.
Okay.
And he may be a college professor, but his thing is American history in the latter 20th century. And because of what he knows, he's able to construct gripping alternative reality post-apocalyptic novels. And the idea of this one is that a nuclear war happened in 1975. It wasn't a total wipeout, but the East Coast gets pretty much wiped, as well as California. The Russians get it hard.
Did he write this before 1975?
No, he didn't. He didn't. He wrote it probably in, I think, 2014, 2015. He actually wrote 3 of them. And
so it's kind of like a Man in the High Castle thing, where you just write about a history that hasn't happened. What if it did?
His thing is alternative reality, but from a disastrous perspective. And he's very good with politics. He's very good with knowing what the battle plans were at the time, what the survival plans were, the continuity government, all of that stuff. And his idea is that Nelson Rockefeller reluctantly has to become president, and then has to make some insane decisions to keep America alive over the next few years, such as deciding not to give supplies to certain towns because they've already had radiation sickness, and basically leaving them to die, and trying to rebuild and avoid wars with up and coming. It's a great book, but mainly just because of his work as a historian, and because he knows so much about the plans of the time. And that is, for me, that's a reason that ebooks should exist. I would never have come across that book because he had a very, very limited print run.
Well, that kind of historical knowledge, deep historical knowledge can make for a really, really great book like the one you just described.
Absolutely. Well, you're listening to the Red Book Show on Wexford New People's Movement Radio. This is a sci-fi special because we are only 2 days away from the inaugural Otherworld Science Fiction Festival in Wexford Town. You can have a chance to join us at the official launch in Wexford Arts Centre at 9 p.m. this coming Friday night with Owen Colfer. We have 2 tickets to give away. All you have to do is text in when myself and Steve spontaneously cut into a scene from Star Trek. Or you can just go onto Facebook and like and share Wexford New People Movement Radio's posts about that. Now we're going to have some music after the break. We're going to have Dr. Uniki's Almanac. We're going to have some crack karaoke, and we are going to be joined by our special guest, author and publisher Phil Hughes. So this is a song called Song for Ireland by Roger Maguire.